I am 98 old today. Say that number out loud and feel how heavy it sits in your mouth. 98. To you, I'm just an old man in a fading frame. But inside, I am still that restless kid staring at a horizon that never ends. Except now, I can see the wall at the end of the hallway. I am standing at the finish line. And the most terrifying thing isn't death. I spent decades waiting for the right time. I waited for the promotion, for the kids to finish school, for the bank account to hit a certain number, for a someday that was promised but never scheduled. If I had understood 40 years ago what I know at this very second, my entire existence would have been written in different colors. I would have lived a life that was actually mine, not a life I was borrowing from my fears. You are watching this right now, and I can see it in your eyes. You think you have a surplus of time. You think you're different. But you are standing exactly where I stood, making the same catastrophic mistake. You are treating your life like a dress rehearsal for a play that will never open. You are trading your heartbeat for comfort, and your soul for later. Stop. Just stop. Listen to a man who has run out of time to lie to himself. There is one brutal singular truth that changes everything. How you wake up, how you love, and how you choose what to do with your limited breaths. I'm going to give you that truth right now, not because I'm a teacher, but because I am a warning. Do not repeat my mistake. Do not wait until you are 80 to finally start your first day. Let me save you the years I can never get back. I know exactly what you're doing because I was a master architect of the same prison. You're building a proper life, brick by heavy brick. You call it stability. You call it being responsible. I called it that for 60 years. I spent my prime in a suit that felt like a straitjacket, chasing a version of success that belonged to someone else. I lived by the mantra of the miserable. I just need to endure this for a little longer. And then I'll finally start living. It's the great scam of the modern soul. We treat our youth like a down payment for a retirement. We might not even be healthy enough to enjoy. I worked the jobs I didn't like to buy, things I didn't need to impress people I didn't even respect. I was successful by every external metric. The house was big, the lawn was green, the titles were prestigious. But inside, I was a ghost. I was surviving, not living. I was a professional at waiting. I lived in the postponed present. First, the kids have to graduate. First, the mortgage has to be cleared. First, I need to reach the next rung on the ladder. We convince ourselves that life is a series of obstacles to be cleared before the real experience begins. But here is the secret they don't tell you. There is no after. The obstacles were the life. I looked right on paper, but I felt nothing in my chest. I was so busy securing my future that I completely abandoned my present. I was running a race where the finish line kept moving further away. You think that by playing it safe, you're winning. You're not. You're just slowly suffocating in a room made of gold-plated obligations. You're waiting for a permission slip to be happy that no one is ever going to sign. For 60 years, I walked around with a blindfold made of tomorrow. I operated on a fundamental lie, a glitch in the human brain that tells us our time is an infinite resource, while our money and our reputation are scarce. I was a miser with my pennies and a billionaire with my hours, throwing them away as if the vault would never run dry. I lived my life in the future tense, a future that I realize now was never guaranteed to arrive. The most dangerous self-deception is the belief that it will be easier later. We tell ourselves that once the storm passes, we'll take care of our bodies. Once the project is done, we'll look our partners in the eyes and actually listen. Once we have more security, we'll rediscover our passions. But later, it's a desert where nothing grows. While I was busy saving for a rainy day, I was letting the sunniest years of my life slip through my fingers unnoticed. I ignored the whispers of my own body until they became screams. I treated my relationships like plants that could survive without water, assuming they'd just be there when I finally had the time to care. I was so focused on the destination that I treated the journey like a nuisance, an inconvenience to be endured. I didn't see that my health, my joy, and my connections weren't things I could fix in the final act. They were the very fabric of the play. Now, at 80, I look back and see the wreckage of that logic. You can earn back a lost fortune, but you cannot buy back a single Tuesday from your 30s. You can rebuild a house, but you cannot reknow the child who has already grown up while you were at the office. The realization hits you like a physical blow. The most precious things in life are the ones you ignored because they didn't have a deadline. The tragedy isn't that life is short. It's that we wait so long to begin it, only to find that the doors we meant to walk through have been locked for years. The moment of truth didn't come with a thunderclap. It came in the sterile, suffocating silence of a hospital room 3 years ago. I was lying there, wired to monitors that beeped with a cold, rhythmic indifference, recovering from a surgery that I wasn't supposed to survive. For the first time in 80 years, the noise of busyness stopped. There were no meetings to attend, no bills to fret over, no Sundays to plan. There was only the white ceiling and the terrifyingly slow tick of the wall clock. In that stillness, the blindfold finally fell away. I looked at my hands, thin, bruised and trembling, and I felt a crushing wave of grief. But I wasn't grieving for my health or my career. I was grieving for the thousands of sunsets I had ignored because I was checking emails. I was grieving for the laughter of my wife that I had tuned out because I was too tired. I was grieving for the man I could have been if I hadn't been so afraid of being irresponsible. I realized then, with a piercing clarity that felt like ice in my veins, that life is not a dress rehearsal. There is no opening night waiting in the future. The show started 80 years ago, and I had spent most of it sitting in the wings, waiting for a cue that had already passed. In that hospital bed, I didn't think once about my bank balance or the titles on my office door. I thought about the smell of the ocean I hadn't visited in a decade. I thought about the music I never learned to play. I felt the absolute finality of time. You think you're waiting for life to start, but you're actually just watching it end. I made a pact with the silence that night. If I got out of that bed, I would never visit this world again. I would inhabit it. Here is the hard, cold truth that most people spend their entire lives running away from. The perfect moment is a ghost. It doesn't exist. It's a fairy tale we tell ourselves. So we don't have to face the terrifying responsibility of being happy right now. For 80 years, I operated under the delusion that I was preparing for something. I thought I was laying the groundwork for a life that would eventually be effortless and golden. But I was wrong. I wasn't preparing to live. I was already living. And I was doing a miserable job of it because I wasn't actually there. You aren't in a waiting room. You aren't in a training camp. This, right now, with your messy kitchen, your stressful job, and your tired eyes, this is the main event. This is the only life you're ever going to get. The tragedy of the human condition is that we ignore the very things that make life worth living because they don't look important enough. We ignore the way the morning light hits the floor, the sound of a friend's voice, the feeling of cold water on a hot day. We dismiss these as background noise while we chase the big things. But when you get to my age, you realize the big things were actually small, and the small things were the only things that ever mattered. If you are waiting for the stress to end, for the money to be right, or for the timing to be ideal before you allow yourself to be joyful, you are committing a slow-motion suicide. You are trading the reality of your existence for a mirage that will always be 10 miles further down the road. Most of your life will pass you by in the mundane, quiet gaps between your big achievements. If you aren't alive in those gaps, you aren't alive at all. You're just a clock ticking in an empty room. Stop waiting for the world to give you permission to exist. The door is already open. It has always been open. You've just been too busy looking at your watch to notice. If I could reach back through the fog of time and grab that younger version of myself by the shoulders, that man in his 30s, 40s, or 50s, I wouldn't give him stock tips or career advice. I would whisper a different set of instructions into his ear. If I had known then what the silence of a hospital room taught me, my life would have looked like a masterpiece of the unimportant. I would have spent twice as much time listening and half as much time explaining. I wouldn't have just sat at the dinner table. I would have truly been there. I would have known that those words, those quiet moments of connection, were the only things that would stay with me when the lights started to dim. I would have stopped being so damn afraid of what people thought of me. I spent decades pruning my personality to fit a shape that others found acceptable. What a waste. I would have worn the loud shirt, danced the clumsy dance, and spoken the unpopular truth. I would have realized that people are far too busy worrying about their own insecurities to spend much time judging yours. I would have given myself permission to be a fool, to be messy, to be experimental, to play. I wouldn't have waited for a heart scare to start cherishing this body. I would have moved it, fed it, and rested it out of love, not out of a frantic attempt to fix what I'd already broken. And most importantly, I would have stopped holding my joy hostage. I wouldn't have waited for a special occasion to open the good bottle of wine or to say I love you or I'm sorry. I would have lived in a state of constant, unprovoked celebration. I would have known that the most important words shouldn't be saved for a eulogy. They should be whispered in the kitchen on a random Tuesday. I don't want you to just nod at my words and then slide back into the grey comfort of your routine. Philosophy without action is just a daydream, and you've spent enough years dreaming. If you want to honor the years I've lost to waiting, you have to change the way you move through this world starting right now. Not tomorrow morning. Now. First, identify the silent debt. We all have that one conversation we've been keeping in a drawer. A long overdue apology, a confession of love, or a boundary that needs to be drawn. Pick up the phone. Don't wait for the words to be perfect. The perfect words don't exist. But the perfect moment is the one you create. Give that person the gift of your honesty today. Next, audit your automatic pilot. We spend our days as passengers in our own lives, letting habit take the wheel. Today, I want you to break the rhythm. When you eat, actually taste the food. When you walk to your car, feel your feet hit the pavement. For 5 minutes, stop being a person who is going somewhere and just be a person who is somewhere. Force your brain to notice the architecture of the ordinary. Finally, start making decisions based on the currency of time, not just the currency of status. If you are choosing between an extra hour of work to impress a boss who won't remember your name in 10 years, and an hour spent doing something that makes your soul feel alive. Choose the soul. Every time, take one small, irresponsible step toward what actually matters to you. It doesn't have to be a mountain climb. It can be a walk in the park without your phone, or finally buying the paints you've been looking at for 3 years. Stop being the custodian of your life and start being the architect. You aren't preparing for anything anymore. The gates are open, walk through them. Now, I'm an old man, but I'm not a fool. When I tell you to stop waiting, I am not suggesting you quit your job tomorrow, burn your bridges, and move to a shack in the mountains. This isn't a call for chaos. It's a call for consciousness. Living fully doesn't mean abandoning your responsibilities. It means changing the spirit in which you fulfill them. It's about finding the balance between the mortgage you have to pay and the life you have to lead. You don't need to blow up your world to find joy. You just need to stop letting your world blow up your joy. Don't let your mind tell you that it's too late or that the mountain is too high to climb. You don't need a grand gesture. 1 degree of shift in a ship's rudder changes the destination by 1,000 miles over time. Small, quiet steps are more powerful than desperate, reckless leaps. You can start this at 20, at 50, or at 80. The only too late that exists is the moment when you can no longer say, "I'm sorry," "I love you," or "thank you." As long as there is air in your lungs, the window is still open. Don't let the fear of doing it wrong keep you from doing it at all. This isn't about being perfect. It's about being present. You aren't failing because you have bills to pay. You're only failing if you believe those bills are the reason you can't smile at the sun. Responsibility is the part of life, but it was never meant to be the whole of it. It took me 80 years to travel the longest distance in the world, the 18 inches from my head to my heart. It took a lifetime of noise to finally appreciate the beauty of a single quiet breath. I spent decades chasing a horizon that was always retreating, only to realize that the treasure wasn't at the end of the rainbow. It was in the dirt beneath my feet all along. The most profound truths are always the simplest, yet we hide from them because they require us to be brave. They require us to be still. I am 80, and I am finally having my happy childhood. I am finally learning how to play, how to wonder, and how to be harmless. I am finally discovering that we are all made of the same stardust turning in the same great kaleidoscope. The difference between us is that I am standing at the exit and you are still in the room. You still have the one thing I would give all my remaining days for: more time. Please don't wait for a diagnosis or a tragedy to realize that your life is happening right now. It doesn't happen in the big moments you plan for. It happens in the quiet gaps you ignore. It's in the steam rising from your coffee, the grip of a hand, the silence between heartbeats. Life passes much more quietly than we expect. Don't let it pass you by while you're looking for something louder. Everything you've ever searched for is already here. It's waiting for you to simply stop, go slow, and finally see it for the first time. I'm not asking for much, just one thing. Before you put this device away and let the noise of the world rush back in, make one small promise to yourself, not to me, but to the person you will be in 40 years. Take one step, just one, toward that life you've been keeping in a drawer. Write down in the comments below. What is the one thing you are going to stop postponing today? Is it a phone call, a walk, a dream? By naming it, you make it real. And if you want a quiet voice in your ear every now and then to remind you that your time is precious and your joy is a priority, then stay with me. Let's remember what matters together. The sun is setting on my day, but it's still high in yours. Go slow. Listen to your heart, because the only way to truly enjoy this day is to actually be in it. Right now.